Good morning. I'm Barbara Mel Goldman with Channel 22. It's a beautiful day in Sun City Grand, and I have the privilege and pleasure of being here with Bill Peter, a futurist and consultant, and a very interesting man. We have by this time become friends. I hope the audience has seen him before, as we have done 4 shows together. We will continue on this vein to bring you some very, very good information. Bill is an extremely knowledgeable gentleman, and I'd like at this time to introduce him once again. Bill Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Barb.
So nice to have you here, and we're going to talk about some very interesting things. However, before we begin this morning, Bill, I'd like, for the audience benefit, for you to explain your role as a futurist. Many people are not really well informed about what that is. I'd like them to know before you speak. You have marvelous credentials, but please explain your role as a futurist. Thank you.
Sure. Somebody might think a futurist is a person that looks at a crystal ball and tells you what the future is going to be, or a psychic. But no, neither one of those. A futurist is a professional who analyzes the world and tries to determine what might happen in the future, what probably will happen in the future, and then looks for ways that we can create the future that we would like to have. So it is an analytical skill that people do to see what the future could be and what they would like to have it be. Actually, enterprise leaders, government, corporations, all kinds of enterprise leaders really are futurists because they have a vision for what they want to see happen.
Okay, that having been said, we've heard a lot about global warming. And as a futurist, what are your views on the subject?
Global warming is a very difficult topic, and I'm sorry to report that the media has made it seem simplistic. It is very, very, very complicated. I will try to give it an overview of it today. Unfortunately, I guess I would say the communication program on global warming has been incredibly successful. However, the analysis that goes into preparing the information that is to be communicated is very, very faulty. So global warming is a significant issue, needs attention, but I'm afraid to report that only about 1/10 of all the facts have been reported.
Do you mean that the Al Gore story on global warming is flat out false?
I won't say it's flat out false, but I'll explain to you a little bit about the background. In 1969, one of the most amazing graphics happened that we have seen in the last 40 years was in 1969. You probably will know what it is, but I'll just quickly tell you. It was the picture of the Earth from outer space, the blue marble picture that we've seen so many times. And before then, we knew that there was outer space, but we didn't see what the Earth looked like from out there. And that was a dramatic picture all of a sudden that we had in 1969. People's perception of the Earth changed in 1969 because they could see that. Now, let's go back 600 years. You could have a report, if they'd had television at the time, you could have a report that said, oh, it is the consensus of all scientists in the United States or in the world that the world is flat. It's just flat, and the sun rotates around the Earth. Because 600 years ago, scientists thought that the Earth was flat. It was the center of the universe, and in fact, the sun rotated around the Earth. Absolutely wrong, but well accepted by all scientists at the time. Right now, we're saying It's the consensus of scientists that there is a global warming phenomenon, and it is caused by human nature, human activity, and it is caused by CO2. That is very, very provocative, important, and probably mostly wrong.
Please explain CO2 to the audience.
CO2 is carbon dioxide. C is a carbon atom, oxygen, two of them, one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms make carbon dioxide, and the shorthand in chemistry is CO2. Just like water is hydrogen and oxygen, H2O is two hydrogens and one oxygen. Now, as it turns out, if you see a smokestack at a factory, and it's making tremendous amount of smoke going up into the sky, a lot of that is water. And a lot of it is CO2, carbon dioxide. Mm-hmm. When the water evaporates out of the ocean, and it evaporates and makes clouds, and later on we get rain. So rain comes down, gets in the oceans, rivers, evaporates. On a cloudy day, it is cooler. And that's because there's water vapor in the sky, shading the sun from coming to the earth. The sun's rays are always shining, but they can't get to the earth on a cloudy day. Water vapor is a barrier from the sun to get rays onto the earth. Carbon dioxide is also a barrier. So is it maybe the water vapor that's causing some of these temperatures to be changed? That's a question. However, we get into provocative statements like the whole Earth knows that we should have the Kyoto Treaty. Well, the Kyoto Treaty, Kyoto, Japan, a group of politicians got together around the world, said we should have the end to this carbon dioxide coming into the sky too much. Came to the United States for a vote, and the vote in the U.S. Senate was 95 against the Kyoto Treaty, 0 in favor of it. 95 to 0 in the Senate, it was defeated. For the next 10 years we've been hearing, isn't it terrible that we defeated the Kyoto Treaty? The present administration, they should sign on to the Kyoto Treaty. Well, it turns out that many nations did not sign on to the Kyoto Treaty. China and India didn't sign on to the Kyoto Treaty. And the U.S. Senate, with a 95 to 0 vote, didn't sign on to the Kyoto Treaty. And why? Why would they do that? These are some of the issues that have to be brought out, not just that we have a problem, but are political people going to do something about it? Now, when you think about how they come up with global warming is an issue. The facts are, in the last 30 years, the atmosphere has gone up approximately 0.6 of a degree. Now, I have personally made mathematical models. I went to MIT. I know how to do those things. I've made mathematical models. They take these mathematical models and they extrapolate them and say, someday we're going to have tremendous amount of temperature increase. Sometimes the whole environment is going to change. The facts are, we know that 0.6 of a degree in the last 30 years. When that 0.6 of a degree has happened in the last 30 years, we also know that there has been carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That's a correlation. Carbon dioxide's in the atmosphere, temperature went up, but it is not a cause and effect. You can't absolutely be sure that it was the carbon dioxide that caused that temperature to go up. In fact, they've checked the temperature increase of Mars, and Mars has gone up 0.6 of a degree in the last 30 years. And Earth has gone up 0.6 of a degree in the last 30 years. But Mars hasn't got SUVs that are making the CO2. We have to look at many more facts.
Mm-hmm. So looking at the facts, so what do you say about Al Gore's point of view?
Al Gore's point of view is
I know in your
it's based on only part of the facts. And the problem is when you make a mathematical model and extrapolate it for many years, you are assuming that what you put into the equations for the mathematics for the last 30 years will extrapolate. The real way to build models is to say what happened since the Earth began. Since the Earth began, millions and millions of years, we've had ice ages and we've had heating periods. Now the meteorologists have concluded, the geographers have concluded, that there really were ice ages, and there really were heating cycles, and there really were dinosaurs way, way back. We're talking millions of years.
Yes.
Right now, we are in a 10 to 15,000 year heating cycle. When you look at the millions of years of the Earth, we were in a 10 to 15,000 year heating cycle. Is it surprising that there would be a 1 degree change in the last 30 years? If we're in a 10 or 15,000, would we rather have glaciers forming and ice ages? As it turns out, in 1973, thereabouts, mid-1970s, there was a Newsweek issue that said, "The ice age is coming." In the mid-70s, saying the ice age is coming. We have a little bit of cool weather, and people say the ice age is coming. We have some melting of glaciers. Is Al Gore right when he says there's some melting of glaciers? Absolutely.
Yes.
There's facts there. But the next question is, did the carbon dioxide do it? Or was it something beyond the power of human beings? That isn't being posed. When volcanoes erupt, they put a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide in the air. When volcanoes erupt under the oceans, that heat has to go somewhere. It heats the oceans. Isn't it funny how we have different temperatures in different places of the ocean? The Gulf Stream is a warmer stream than others. There's a tremendous amount of meteorological things going on in our Earth that are not just related to our emissions from factories.
So how do you feel that such a major story can be told from only one point of view, the false point of view, I believe, in your judgment?
Well, I won't say it's false, it's just part of the story.
Right.
I think it starts from human beings want to think that they are in control of the universe. And we think that we are so doggone smart that if our scientists say, you know what, the sun rotates around the Earth, which people thought, that's our narrow-minded human beings thought. That's not the truth, but we tend to believe that we're powerful. And then the other thing that is really important is when you find a correlation, it doesn't mean cause and effect. I've read every word of Al Gore's book. And it's got this basic problem. A correlation does not mean cause and effect. For example, I went to college at MIT and I had a course in mathematics and statistics, and they gave us a little book, How to Lie with Statistics. How to lie with statistics, in addition to how to do statistics, how to lie with statistics, which was a humorous book.
What's that all about?
But what it's all about, for example, they'd say, if you want to lie with statistics, this is what you could do. You can make a graph of how many priests there are in the world, how many Catholic priests there are. You know, and back at this time there was this many Catholic priests and this many Catholic priests, and the number of Catholic priests is going up with time. And then you make another graph that says how much alcohol is consumed. And you find out that alcohol is going up, up, up. And you say, I know, there must be a correlation between the number of priests in the world and the amount of alcohol consumed. because they're both going up, right? They must be related. That's a correlation, but it's not a cause and effect relationship.
That's right.
And usually what happens is there's an underlying thing like population is going up, therefore we need more priests. Mm-hmm. Population is going up, they want to drink more alcohol. So the underlying cause is the population increase. The effects were two effects. One, the number of priests, and another, the number of alcohol. But people who don't look at enough of the facts and statistics jump to the conclusion that if you just have more priests, you'll get more alcohol consumption. It's dumb. It doesn't make sense. And yet that's the mistake of saying that a correlation equals a cause and effect relationship.
All right, so Bill, what do you feel that we can do about global warming? Is there something that we can do as individuals?
Well, the first thing we can do is not just call it global warming.
Okay.
There is no question that there are things going on in this earth, and the question is, what can we do to make life better on Earth? Take that that picture of the Earth from outer space, you know, the blue marble. Mm-hmm. There it is. It's got an environment around it. It's got water and so on. We need to protect the cleanness of the water. We need to make the air good to breathe. Mm-hmm. And then it would be nice if we had available energy to give us a good standard of living, you know, be able to have cars and houses and all. We need that energy, but where could we get it from? So if you want to just say the world is coming to an end and it's global warming, I would say, please calm down. Would you rather have an ice age? We've had ice ages before. It killed many millions of people. It killed many millions of animals and forests. Ice ages is not what we want. In fact, you can live a little better with warming than you can with cooling. But we're right now in a 10,000, 15,000 year heating cycle. So let's not panic about this. What do we want for better standard of living? If we want clean air to breathe,
yes,
let's look at how you get clean air.
How do we get clean air?
We should just look at some history. This is what futurists do. Look at the history and then figure out what do those lessons of history teach us. We're of the age, and the seniors who are watching this show mostly, we remember when Pittsburgh was a city of soot, you know, making coal and making steel and black soot going up in the sky. There are ways to capture they were using coal. They were using coal.
Yes, I know.
So there are ways to capture the soot so that it doesn't go into the skies, so that the carbon dioxide doesn't go into the sky. And Pittsburgh today does not have the problem that it had 50 years ago.
And that's one isolated case.
But so if you have a problem, figure out how to solve it. Where does it? Most of our energy that makes electricity comes from coal. So Pittsburgh was using coal for making steel and electricity. Today, coal is still predominantly used, but we have a ways to capture it before it goes to the outer atmosphere. And people have figured out how to get the electricity by using nuclear power. Over 70% of all France's electricity comes from nuclear power. Mm-hmm. We've been afraid to make nuclear power plants because we're afraid of Chernobyl, we're afraid of 3 Mile Island. Okay? That fear is not justified. I was within 10 miles of 3 Mile Island running a convention at the time that 3 Mile Island went. Mm-hmm. I was there within 10 miles. Not one person died at 3 Mile Island. Not one person had radiation sickness from 3 Mile Island. Not one person suffered from 3 Mile Island. In Chernobyl was a different story. The design of their power plants was terrible. Chernobyl was a different story. A lot of people suffered in that. But 3 Mile Island, we had that disaster and we thought, oh, suppose. Well, we know how to design power plants. Nuclear power plants, lo and behold, makes no carbon dioxide. Nuclear power plants makes electricity, without carbon dioxide. And that's a beautiful thing. France has taken it, and over 70% of their electricity comes from nuclear power plants. Now we're starting to see, if you want electricity, hey, maybe we should try to avoid CO2 emission, carbon dioxide emission. Nuclear power plants are the best answer. So who's planning on building nuclear power plants? The United States. Texas is starting to expand, put out the plans. It's going to take 10 years for each of the plants to be built. And then Japan, China, a lot of people are building nuclear power plants in order to avoid having to use coal so much. Now, look, we learned these lessons. We've learned the lessons of how to capture Pittsburgh smoke. We've learned the lessons of how to use nuclear power. China right now is making a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide in the air. I have friends who are in China, and it's hard to breathe that air. They are just 50 years behind us. They're putting up their industry and not putting up all of their pollution control systems. But the people are now insisting that they put up the pollution control systems. Why is China and India got so much? They're using the best, cheapest form of energy that they can, and that's coal. They're burning the coal in the homes to cook, in the homes to eat, in the factories to make electricity, all that. So they have cheap coal, and they want the energy, the power, so they're using the coal. The story has been written. We know what coal can do. We know it's inexpensive. We know how to handle it. Nuclear power, we learned how to do it. The United States got jittery after 3 Mile Island and then didn't build any more nuclear power plants. We have nuclear power plants right here in Arizona. We have a nuclear power plant. We have them around the country, but we didn't build any new ones since 1975. But the rest of the world has. So if you want to not worry about global warming, but worry about energy, then we should be replacing coal with nuclear power. And we should be doing things on automobiles to get better gas mileage. And the independence from foreign countries on oil is as important as the global warming, maybe much, much more important.
Bill, as a futurist, what do you think that the global warming picture will be in the year 2307?
Well, that's 300 years from now.
Yes, it is.
And so it's hard to be absolutely sure. But
any ideas about it?
I have some ideas, and I will share them. I think we, in 300 years from now, will recognize that the TV shows on global warming were wrong. As my hypothesis, we will say, my goodness, it wasn't just carbon dioxide, and there were other answers. And isn't it interesting how we have been able to solve most of these problems without saying the Earth is coming to an end? The solutions are apparent. Number one, we should get electricity from nuclear power plants, preferentially. And by 300 years from now, the rest of the world will recognize it, and China and India and everybody will recognize it, and that's the way they will predominantly have our electricity from nuclear power. Hybrid cars will be big, big, big. The reason for a hybrid car is you can jump from 20 miles per gallon up to 60 miles per gallon.
60 miles a gallon.
Because you've got a battery in that hybrid car. A hybrid car is partially an internal combustion engine and partially a battery. And that battery provides electrical force that keeps the car going. And when I was consulting with the automotive business in December of 2001, so it's now over 5 years, 6 years ago, I said, they asked me as a futurist, what do you think is going to be? And I said, all the evidence is clear. Hybrid cars are, this is maybe patting myself on the back, but the hybrid car is the car of the future because it's going to give us, triple the gas mileage and a very effective personal car. And they said, how do you know? And I said, because the Japanese have already done it.
And we know it works.
But they had done it 5-6 years ago, you see, and they've been perfecting it since. So you didn't have to create it from scratch. They had already done it. And in fact, they already had put the most popular brand of Honda, the Civic, into a hybrid. And when you're a manufacturer and you have a big company, you don't put your most valuable brand into something that you don't think is going to be the future. So hybrid cars are very sensible. The United States has been way behind in developing technology. You have to develop the technology, then you have to build the factories, then you have to sell them, and it takes years before you make that transition. The Japanese have shown us how to do it. So when we're going to conserve gasoline, the quickest way is over the next 10 years to use hybrid cars. So, the federal government puts laws together, and they had laws for fuel efficiency. Mm-hmm. So that each manufacturer had to have, they called them CAFE laws, the average miles per gallon for the fleet. And that's good. Make the manufacturers have improvement in the miles per gallon. Mm-hmm. Well, at the last minute, and the last time that law was put in, a phrase was put in, but this does not count SUVs, vans, and anything on a truck frame. So the gas mileage requirements improvement was cut out by saying it didn't apply to that little phrase.
That limited it.
Limited. If that little phrase was taken out, we have tremendous capability on getting away from foreign oil. So, yes, there's some legislative things that we can do. The nuclear power plants, hybrid cars. In the long pull, the ultimate power that we have comes from the sun. And solar power, 300 years from now, is going to be still coming from the sun. Nobody's predicting that the sun is going to stop. If the sun stops, we're in trouble, You talk about global warming. We're going to have global cooling if we don't have any sun, right? I mean, that is our ultimate power. The ultimate resource power is that in the daytime we have warm weather, and in the nighttime it's cooler. That difference between the warm weather in the day and that difference is our ultimate power source. So in the next 300 years, we're going to see sun as our big solar systems as our big power. So research going on solar power will be tremendous.
Well, Bill, you're a wealth of knowledge. There's no question about it. I'm all ears where you're concerned, and I hope our audience paid attention to what you had to say, because it's built on your experience and all of your research, and it was very valuable listening to you today. I hope our audience enjoyed it very much, as I did. It was really a good lesson.
I would like to make one quick comment as we end.
Do.
We should not ignore comments about global warming, but we should look at the big picture. And the big picture is probably we should do many of the things that the global warming enthusiasts want us to do. Probably a lot of those things are good,
yes,
but not panic that the world is coming to an end.
Thank you so much, Bill. You've given us so much to think about today, and thank you for being here. I'm Barbara Mel Goldman with Channel 22, and it's a wrap.